Okay, so as the world turns with the Philadelphia 76ers, apparently Daryl Morey says that he's willing and he's prepared to go through this drama for 4 years, and that's pretty much the length of Ben Simmons' contract. Ben Simmons has 4 years left on his contract. If you've been living under a rock, allow me, brother, to explain. Apparently, Ben Simmons had enough with the Philadelphia 76ers organization, Doc Rivers, and Daryl Morey. He's been lied to. Pretty much, Doc Rivers said in an interview, and this really extended even longer than that. In an interview after they lost to the Atlanta Hawks, he's not sure if Ben Simmons, he can win with Ben Simmons, pretty much. And Ben Simmons, as well as his agent, Rich Paul, has been demanding a trade, leaving the Philadelphia 76ers organization. And he went to practice a couple of days ago. He was there, but he really wasn't there. If you get my drift, there was also reports out there. I feel like these are false reports. And I feel like the Philadelphia 76ers organization pushed this narrative of Ben Simmons having a phone in his pocket and was not interacting with the rest of the people that were in practice. Doc Rivers had enough. He excused Ben Simmons from practice. He's been suspended for one practice, and he has been suspended as of right now, only one game. And that game, the Philadelphia 76ers beat up on the New Orleans Pelicans. They would have beaten up on the New Orleans Pelicans if Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons was not present. They still would have beat up on the New Orleans Pelicans, because look, let's just face facts. The New Orleans Pelicans are trying to find themselves. They're trying to build on top of Zion, and I feel like ultimately the New Orleans Pelicans are going to be in the same situation as the Philadelphia 76ers find themselves in. A lot of people saying that the Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers versus Ben Simmons and Rich Paul are playing a game of chicken. Both sides, really don't want to work with one another, even though the Philadelphia 76ers organization and Doc Rivers have all the leverage, because Ben Simmons signed a contract and he has 4 years of that contract. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers also said that they're willing to fine him. They're willing to withhold his earnings from that contract. So they're willing to do whatever it takes to make Ben Simmons' day unenjoyable. And he's not going to earn a check by just sitting at home. Now, here's my opinion. And if you are a parent, if you worked as a teacher, if you worked as a daycare provider, you would understand my drift and you'll understand where I'm going with this, okay? Ben Simmons, Rich Paul are like children. And guess what? Daryl Morey, Doc Rivers, the Philadelphia fans, as well as the Philadelphia organization, are too acting like children. When you have two children that can't get along, can't share with one another, causing a distraction with the other children or with their brothers and sisters, what do you do as a parent? What do you do as a teacher? What do you do as a daycare provider? You separate the situation. You isolate the situation. And if the situation gets to a point where it affects everyone involved, then you send them to their rooms as a parent, or as a teacher or as a daycare provider, you move them to another classroom. And problem solved. Now, as family, you can't get rid of family, particularly when you're dealing with kids. It's not the fact that you can send kids, if you have 2 kids and they're acting unruly, you just can't simply just send them to another adopted parent. Okay, that's not going to work. You figure out ways to get them involved with one another, and you just work out the situation between children. And 99.9% of the time, it works effectively. Fast forward to Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia Sixers organization. These two sides are too prideful. They're not willing to just accept that they made a huge mistake from the word go in handling Ben Simmons with, Joel Embiid, trust the process. They really put a wedge in between these guys. And I told you guys years ago on multiple YouTube channels that this was not going to work. Wasn't going to work because they pretty much essentially are the same players. You have to keep them down low in order for them to be very successful. Now, Joel Embiid, he added a lot of stuff to his repertoire. He could shoot threes. He could float around the perimeter. But to get the most effectiveness out of Joel Embiid, you want to post him down the post, even though a lot of people say that's a lost craft. But I feel like that's going to be one of the reasons why the Philadelphia 76ers are going to be a successful basketball team, because now you added shooters, so there's really no need for Joel Embiid to be floating around the perimeter unless you are involving Ben Simmons to that roster. This formula is disastrous. It's never going to work. On top of that, Ben Simmons still hasn't mentally gotten over the hump in clutch situations, his unwillingness to shoot the ball. I feel like over time, he can get control of this, maybe talking to a sports psychiatrist, maybe experience, but ultimately, this situation is not going to help Ben Simmons with his problems. This is not going to help the Philadelphia 76ers, Daryl Morey, as well as Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid, by continuing to play this game of who blinks first, playing this game of chicken, playing this children's game of we'll just suspend him for one practice or for one game, send him to his room, which that's ultimately where he wants to be in the first place. As a child, when you get sent to your room, particularly in this decade, in this generation, that's the best place a teen or a child wants to be. Their console is there, their PC is there, their laptop is there, their smartphone is there. The majority of their friends are on social media anyway. So basically, you're just really rewarding a teen or a child by sending them to the room. What purpose does it solve by sending them to their room? So that's pretty much the holding pattern of the Philadelphia 76ers. What they're willing to, and they just quoted in this particular article, they're willing to go through this for 4 years. Daryl Morey also said in this interview, they're willing to listen to a trade, but if it's not going to be equal, which, folks, sounds like children mentality. If it's not equal, then they're going to be unwilling to trade Ben Simmons. If they don't get anything equal to Ben Simmons, if they don't get a difference maker equal to Ben Simmons, they are not in the market for trading Ben Simmons. And as the days go on, the value of Ben Simmons is dropping, folks. It's not rising, it's dropping. Because guess what? Other NBA teams know that they can just give less for more. They can give less for Philadelphia to get the services of Ben Simmons as the clock ticks. Like sands through the hourglass, these are the days of our lives. That's basically, in retrospect, what's going on with the Philadelphia 76ers. The Philadelphia 76ers should have moved him over the summer or the end of the season and just be done with it. Yes, you're going to reward Ben Simmons and you're going to let him play elsewhere, but you had the leverage at that time to trade him elsewhere. You didn't have to necessarily trade him to a contender. You did not have to trade him to a team he wants to go to. Remember, Ben Simmons doesn't have Kyrie Irving money. Kyrie Irving can essentially retire from the NBA, and he's good, fam. Kyrie Irving has other irons on the stove. He has other interests, and basketball is not one of his high priority interests. Ben Simmons is a young guy. I believe he's 24. He just got a sniff of making some good money. And he's not at the position of a Kyrie Irving. So you should have traded Ben Simmons earlier. But like I said, children acting like children. Don't want to see either side be right or wrong. Don't want to see either side get what they want. They would have gotten a king ransom for Ben Simmons. Not a difference maker, but you would have gotten other players to benefit Joel Embiid. You would have gotten a multitude of first round picks where you could utilize these picks, or you could flip these picks for maybe a difference maker. Maybe a Dame, dollar Dame. Picks with a multitude of first round draft picks, meaning the Portland Trail Blazers are not going to be interested in that. They'll kick the tires around, something like that. Or maybe some up and coming players, like trading with Houston. But you would have had a team that would have been solid. The distraction would have been gone, and they would have been moving forward. This team is on a holding pattern. They're never going to move on from this because they essentially have a cancer in their team facilities, and they can't get rid of it. They can't cut it out, okay? They have to deal with it. Joel Embiid doesn't have enough of this. And if Joel Embiid had enough of it, I guarantee you the majority of that team seen enough, had enough. They're ready to move on. They're willing to roll the dice and see what they can do this season without Ben Simmons. Not with Ben Simmons suspending him for a practice or two or a game or two. Because now Ben Simmons is saying that my achy back. And now he's saying mentally he's not prepared for the season. So he's going to drain this thing out. Now, how long he's going to drain this thing out, I don't know. But sometimes you have to have a big person. Someone has to be the adult. Someone has to make a sacrifice that's ultimately going to benefit the future or your team or your players. Somebody's going to have to be the big boy. Daryl Morey is unwilling to be the big boy. Remember, this is the same guy. This is the same guy where he was with Houston. And he was trying to satisfy James Harden. Doing everything in the name of James Harden. If it means getting rid of his future, he would have gotten rid of his future. If it means getting rid of significant players for the Houston Rockets, he was willing to do it for James Harden. Until ultimately, James Harden, guess what? Is no longer with the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets got some great picks for the Brooklyn Nets. From the Brooklyn Nets. They also have drafted pretty well. But the Houston Rockets are nowhere where they were 3 years ago. They're not a difference maker. They're not a contender. They're just in a holding pattern, and basically they're playing seasons for the future of the Houston Rockets. Fast forward to today. Daryl Morey, if you're listening to this video, or if someone is a friend of his, or if someone is a big-time, lifelong fan of his or the Philadelphia 76ers, they should depart immediately away from Ben Simmons, because the longer this takes, the less valuable Ben Simmons ultimately become, because that leverage you once had 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago is slowly deteriorating to the point of now Ben Simmons is going to have all the leverage. You're getting rid of Ben Simmons not to benefit. You're getting rid of Ben Simmons not to give him what he wants, but you're getting rid of Ben Simmons to get from out from under this terrible PR nightmare. Is probably affecting your players. That's one player you can't use. That's a healthy scratch. And you're getting rid of Ben Simmons for ultimately role players and some draft picks. Now, I'm not going to make this video any longer than it's already going to be. I have done multiple videos. I told you guys the places where it will really benefit the Philadelphia 76ers. They're not going to get a difference maker, folks. Get that nonsense out of your head. You're not trading Ben Simmons for Kawhi Leonard. You're not trading Ben Simmons for LeBron James or Anthony Davis. Okay? You're not getting that type of an elite player for Ben Simmons. Dame Lillard, who last year was talking about maybe moving on from the Portland Trail Blazers. He's committed to the Portland Trail Blazers. You would think someone that once talked about moving away from Portland, you would think that would probably be one of the places he wants to go. Align himself with Joel Embiid. That would be a hellified combination. Dame Dollar and Joel Embiid. But even he's not touching this with a 10-foot pole. It's not because of the team. It's probably not because of the coach. But it is probably because of the community and the organization, the Philadelphia fans, as well as the Philadelphia 76ers organization, where some players that were talking about trading away from their team that they currently are, that's probably one of the reasons. And they're looking at how they're handling this Ben Simmons disaster, and they're handling it like a toddler would. A little kid would when they don't get their way on the basketball court. What they do, if they had the ball, they're going to take the ball with them. And that's what the Philadelphia 76ers ultimately look like. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons don't look great as well. Like I said earlier in this video, I feel like these two sides handling this situation totally wrong. But in today's climate, in today's NBA, you guys created this monster, allowing different makers, allowing talented players, this player entitlement. Players have all the leverage. Players have all the power. You're giving a lot of power to the players. And this has been going on for at least a good solid 10 years. Player entitlement, player power, however you want to define it, however you want to label it. Organizations just allowing players to do whatever they wanted to do, because if they don't, they're going to threaten to get a trade, or they're not going to re-sign and be committed to your organization. So you have no choice but to give the players what they want. And I've said this in multiple videos that this day is going to come where the organizations, where the owners, where the coaches have seen enough, they had enough, and now they're willing to fight these players tooth and nail. Now I'm going to give you a what-if scenario. What if? Not saying that this is going to happen, but what if? What if the Philadelphia 76ers says, you know what? We're standing pat. We're totally committed. We have enough talent on this roster to contend in the playoffs. We're willing to wait on this. What if the Philadelphia 76ers organization, after playing through half of the season or the end of this season, where Ben Simmons says, okay, y'all waiting for the first person to blink, I'm blinking. I already lost way too much money. Obviously, you guys don't mind me losing money. You're not going to let me go, so I'm just going to play 4 years of my contract. I'm just going to just do it. What if the Philadelphia 76ers won? They will be the first organization that won a PR battle, just a nightmare of a battle with an elite player. Now, secretly, the NBA, the NBA have the owners as well as the coaching staff. Excuse me, I'm getting ready to sneeze. I'm so sorry about this. They have secretly said in the next contract agreement, they're going to take a lot of leverage and a lot of power away from the players. And like I said, this is a 10-year creation. I know a lot of people are going to hate what I'm about to say. This ends with LeBron James. This starts with LeBron James dictating to organizations that if you don't, I'm going to sign shorter contracts. And if you don't do what I want done, then I'm walking, I'm leaving, and you're going to get absolutely diddly squat spit from me. Holding organizations hostage. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, not once, but twice, has suffered, and now they're nowhere closer to being a contending team. They have just sold mortgage all their future, particularly picks, for when LeBron James was with Cleveland. Folks, do you realize when you lose 2, 3, 4 years of first round picks, how ultimately it affects your roster? So when you somewhat get back to the point of you're playing for making the roster better, okay, you're going to have holes in the year where you don't have a first round pick. And then when you get the capabilities of, okay, I'm getting my first round picks back, now what happened to all those other picks that you was patching through, that you was salvaging through? Okay, so the Cleveland Cavaliers organization is nowhere near as far as a competitive team, and they're going to go through several coaches, and they're definitely going to go through several office personnel until they finally get it right to somewhat they'd be a competitive team. They're not even a competitive team, folks. Now, I know there's a lot of LeBron James fans, but this is the reason, this is what happens to teams when you give the elite players power and authority, and you just give up your future just to satisfy these elite players. And they are elite players. Houston, it's going to be a min before they just recently traded James Harden for I believe it's 3 or maybe 4 first round draft picks for James Harden. But check the source, folks. You talk about the Brooklyn Nets, and if they just get deep into the playoffs, you're going to look up and get the 25th pick, the 30th pick. Is that pick going to be a difference maker? No. So for 4 years, you're going to be picking from players, but you're not going to get the best talented player. And they just got back their first round picks from picks that they have mortgaged away to satisfy James Harden when he was with the Houston Rockets organization. They was giving up picks. They was mortgaging their future. They was mortgaging the talent that they already had on their roster. It's going to be a min before the Houston Rockets ever get to be a competitive team. Not a playoff team. I didn't say a playoff team. Not a team that's possibly going to make it to the NBA Finals, but just simply a competitive team. There's a difference between being a competitive team and a team that's competitive enough to make it to the playoffs. There's levels to this, folks. There's levels to this. And what if the 76ers blink and they send Ben Simmons to whatever? Now, the latest rumor is, I don't see this rumor happening. The possibility, well, that's for Kyrie Irving about the Miami Heat. But I have heard rumors that they're willing to send him out west. And I told you guys he's a West Coast guy, and I told you guys he preferred to play out west, and they may give him his wishes. But who knows? The Philadelphia 76ers, if they're this petty where they're willing to suspend him for one practice or for one game thus far, just go to your room, go to where, all your stuff is there. And now he's being petty, talking about, oh, my back hurt. It's more of a back issue why I'm not attending practice or attending the games. Oh, it's it's a mental thing that I'm trying to figure out. This, that, and that. He's playing these branches. So what the Philadelphia 76ers should have done, what Daryl Morey should have done, what the Philadelphia 76ers organization, Doc Rivers, should have done is traded him many moons ago and just continue to feed the monster that is in the NBA. The player entitlement, the players' power, organizations folding to the elite players, making this monster even more serious and more dangerous. But the Philadelphia 76ers could be the organization that will do things differently and ultimately win this battle and hope that Ben Simmons is willing to come back to the team. And still, and like I said in other videos, even if they get Ben Simmons back and they got Joel Embiid, that's still not enough to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Miami Heat. You got teams on the rise such as the New York Knickerbockers, as well as the Chicago Bulls. Everyone has evolved. Everyone has gotten better except the Philadelphia 76ers. They still don't have enough, even with Ben Simmons. And if Ben Simmons plays his cards right, Joel Embiid could possibly start to get injured and start missing games. And now the Philadelphia 76ers got a lot of pressure on their ass. Now what you going to do? Now you have no one. Okay? So they're waiting for Ben Simmons to blink early. But Rich Paul and Ben Simmons, they are hunkered down. And they also saying to themselves, let's just wait this thing out until Joel Embiid gets injured. And when Joel Embiid gets injured, now what they do? So if I feel like this nightmare is going to last until it gets closer to the trade deadline. If they were smart, they would have traded Ben Simmons 4 months ago, 6 months ago, so they don't have to live this nightmare that they're in. But fortunately for them, the trade deadline is it's around January, so they have that much time. I don't know why would you wait that long, because see, the longer you wait, the less and less value you get for Ben Simmons, because now teams are going to be looking at you and they're going to say, well, y'all just giving him up because he doesn't want to be there. So why should I give you my best assets, my best pieces? And ultimately, by them trading Ben Simmons later rather than sooner, some heads are going to roll. You're going to be looking for some more front office personnel. They're never going to get over the hump of this. You're going to lose a coach, because if he doesn't show improvement in the second year, he's on the hot seat next year. So there's a possibility you're going to lose Doc Rivers, which I've talked in several videos. Doc Rivers' track record in with players, elite players, superstars, isn't a good record. Started when he was a coach for the Orlando Magic. They had the opportunity of getting Tim Duncan, but Doc Rivers refused Tim Duncan's wife to be on the plane with the rest of the players. And you know how ultimately that laid out. Then his dysfunction with the Boston Celtics, even though he won a title with them, he could not get those players to coexist with one another. Then he's exit stage left from that job. Then he goes to the Clippers. He makes his own team that doesn't have a superstar. They get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. The ownership's seen enough here. Then they make a power move by getting Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And Doc Rivers could not get Kawhi Leonard or Paul George to play nice with the other players. The other players were jealous of the other players were getting jealous of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, what the organization had to do for them. They didn't have to practice as much, and this, that, and the third, and a lot of players did not like it, and ultimately some of those players, all of those players are gone, and then Doc Rivers lose that job, exit stage left, and his first year with the Philadelphia 76ers is disastrous, okay? Couldn't get that team over the hump to beat the Atlanta Hawks. And when they lost that series to the Atlanta Hawks last year, Doc Rivers opened his mouth and his foot got shoved into his mouth when he said, I'm not sure if I can win with Ben Simmons. And even though Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia Sixers organization has already had this huge track record of distrust and disdain, and now when the head coach is ultimately just saying what the organization was thinking, Ben Simmons said, I heard enough, I seen enough, I want to exit stage left from this organization. And now here we are, folks. Here the hell we are. So this is not going to end well. The what if scenario that if the Philadelphia 76ers win this battle with Ben Simmons is highly unlikely. And what ultimately is going to happen is the organization is going to be held up to the elite player. It's going to be held hostage to the elite player, to their superstar, and they're going to finally, cooler heads are going to prevail. There's going to be an adult in the room, an adult that's willing to take a sacrifice, who's willing to lay on that sword, okay? And they're going to trade Ben Simmons. So then people are going to say, well, what was all that for? You could have done this 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Why wait until now? And you're going to trade them to a team, and that organization is not going to give you their best assets. Forget trying to get an elite player. Your best assets, even the best assets, you're not going to be entitled to those. When you do trades, somebody is going to lose on the end. And it's going to be the person that's trading away an elite player, a difference maker, a generational talent. There's not a lot of Ben Simmons out there, folks. Despite his limitations, there's still not a lot of Ben Simmons out there. Because if they were, they would have gotten rid of him ages ago, right? So here we are, all right? This is all I got. I'll talk to you guys later. Deuces.